Hello, everyone. This is Denny Miller, and welcome to Indy500 Yesteryear. And today, with Speedway Insiders Paul Page and Bob Gates, and yours truly, Denny Miller. And we welcome you to what should be a fascinating show, recapping Mid Ohio. But before we do, we want to again say this show is dedicated to the memory of Robin Miller. Hopefully, we get a Robin Miller story in today. That was one of the biggest stories he had and happened in 1981. And we're going to put a wrap up on what we didn't finish the last time about the Bobby Unser, Mario Andretti, who won the 1981 Indianapolis 500. But before that, we're going to do the today part of the yesteryear and today and talk about what I thought was an unusually exciting race at Mid Ohio over the 4th of July weekend. And I guess Penske knew what he was doing when he hired Scott McLaughlin.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The kid can drive.
Very talented.
He won his second race of the season. He kind of went in a slump there for a bit after Texas and then rebounded last time, I thought, relatively well at Elkhart Lake, and then was convincing this time. Giving Penske his 6 wins in 9 races with Chevy. Only Honda won the plum though with Marcus Ericsson at the Indianapolis 500. Right. But it was an interesting race for a race that you typically can't pass on. It tends to be a boring race. And your take on it, Bob?
Well, I agree. It was a very entertaining race. And, I don't know how much passing Will Power actually did, but he fell back to last place, 27th at one point, and made his way to 3rd. So just being aware of what he was doing was entertainment in itself. A lot of different dramas going on. Colton Herta, I don't know how Andretti screwed up that pit stop, not bringing him in before the yellow popped out, but that done him in. And I guess I could go on a rant, really shouldn't, or have time probably.
Oh, rant. Come on, Bob, give it to us.
That's the point of this show. Unfiltered, Robert.
Why do they have to close the pits during a yellow? And I've heard the story that the help with the scoring. Well, for goodness sakes, they've ran races for years and years without the electronic technology they have today, with very few mistakes during a yellow. And I think it detracts from the race when you take out some of the better competitors because of the ill-timed yellow.
Yeah, and that came in because of timing issues. I think more than anything else, they wanted the scores then hand scored as well as computer. They wanted to make sure everything was right before they opened the pits. And I'm with you, Bob. I like to see the pits open right away.
Right. I mean, if
it makes better race.
Yeah. If they score things, 20 years ago, surely to goodness, with the days electronics, they could keep track of the scoring.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's enough of that rant, I suppose.
No, we love it. We love unfiltered things. Well, for those who did not watch, Scott McLaughlin came home the winner, and the surprising run was Will Power, who really, because of, I guess, Elio Castroneves and his qualifying effort, and he came up on Elio and caused Elio to lose some time, and they penalized him or docked him back a few positions, so he had to start toward the rear, I think, 21st, and then he does a 3/4 spin and basically is running last at Mid Ohio of all places.
Right.
Works his way up to 3rd in just a thrilling run. The real thing, I think, was the story of stories was 9 pole winners in 9 races. That's just absolutely remarkable. And that just shows the talent that exists and the equal competition that pretty much exists, even though Penske's won 6 out of 9, he could have lost all 9 races very easily. I think that is my main take, with Pato O'Ward capturing the pole as the 9th different winner. And really, he certainly appeared to be the front runner to win the race. His teammate, Felix Rosenquist, was running a strong 3rd or 4th. And early in the race, and he was on the right tire situation to probably have a chance to win, because he was running, I think, blacks to begin with and had the chance to go to the reds. And he had electrical problems or fuel related problems or a combination of those and dropped out. And then it eventually takes out O'Ward as well. But your take on McLaren, Paul, and how strong they look this weekend?
Well, they were awesome. Let me back up a little bit though, and talk about the Andretti team and Colton specifically. You know, the communications between a driver and the pits is what in radio you call simplex. That is to say, if you're talking, I can't, because you're occupying the frequency. So that could have been, and I have no insight on that, but that could have been that kind of situation where while maybe Colton was talking when they were also selling, pit.
Right.
I don't know the inside of that, but that those radios, you really need to have a almost military or aviation discipline on those radios.
That very well could have been a part of the problem.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like Andretti to miss something like that.
No, not at all.
But it's not unlikely, or is it likely that one of Andretti's drivers has trouble missing other people? Specifically, Rossi really created some excitement this weekend. He got into Grosjean, he got into DeFrancesco, and Herta was involved in it as well. Probably neither of them going to be on a Christmas card list this December. Is there a backstory to that, either one of you, that we are not aware of, or I'm not aware of? How much turmoil might be going on in their camp?
I don't think there's any backstory to it. I think James Hinchcliffe actually said on the telecast, which I thought was interesting, and he drove for Andretti. He said with Andretti, it's every man for himself. It's not a team deal. I'm sure Michael didn't like two of his guys possibly taking each other out, but I guess it's a little bit different with Andretti, and maybe Paul can expand on that a little bit, maybe with some of his insider knowledge.
Well, Andretti does run all their cars separate. Though you did hear some team orders if you were listening to the radio at Mid Ohio when they were telling Grosjean that he needed to protect Rossi's position. And that was an interesting conversation that ended up with you were a lap down. And that communication got through clear.
I did hear that.
There's, with Rossi, I was very, very surprised that he didn't stay with Andretti. And I have reason to believe that maybe that's what he wanted to do too, but it didn't work out. So he goes to McLaren and he's going to be great there. But while he says none of this has to do with the fact that I'm leaving Andretti, I also kind of wonder about that too. The bottom line of whatever that is, if they're playing games, that's dangerous. You're going to hurt somebody. It's going to hurt somebody with doing
That's right. That's right. Well, the one incident where he actually pushed Grosjean off the track, he did lose control of the steering wheel, and Rossi wasn't able to turn back away from Grosjean at that point.
And so there you go. There's more of that danger factor when you're fooling around.
Yep, exactly. You never know what can happen.
No.
Well, Grosjean certainly makes things exciting. So I know he's not all that in love, but I think the fan support from him keeps growing and growing.
Yeah.
Colorful personality for sure.
Yes.
And ideal, I think, for what Robin used to want, the confrontation between driver and driver, to bring back a Paul Tracy Ford A type of
you need the real Dale Earnhardt. He was a villain for everybody.
Yep.
And it was good. That draws attention. Yeah. So,
but I think Rossi is just going to be fantastic with McLaren, and the question remains, who will be the third driver with those? Do you see VK going over and leaving Carpenter? Because that rumor seems to be getting stronger and stronger. And then Rosenquist running the Formula E.
Yeah, I've heard those rumors as well. That's a possibility. Rosenquist, though, I mean, he's very strong. He's had some bad luck, just like Sunday, but he's been very strong for McLaren.
Well, remember when Ganassi first got him, that was quite a coup to land him. And he wanted him, only lasted a year with Ganassi, but and then kind of has slid a bit. But I definitely think of him as an Indy 500 winner. And if they do hire VK, I would not be surprised that he runs the fourth McLaren at Indy, and that might leave Montoya out.
Right.
Looking for something else.
Well, we are getting to the time of the year, since basically sponsorship deals have to be made somewhere in September, that the lineups are going to start to solidify a bit. Talking about Grosjean, and just as an aside, you remember he survived that incredible fire in Formula One, driving for Haas. I mean, this last weekend in Formula One at Silverstone, which by the way was a killer race. And I say it is because they have right angle turns. Yeah, they got some big sweepers. It's a 3-mile circuit. But if you want true racing, right angle turns, or, make them break, make them try to get inside. So, but this weekend on the Formula One start, one car, and is a Chinese guy, and I can't pronounce his name. So, but he on the start got flipped upside down, skidded across the straightaway through the gravel pit, hit the barrier, the safety style barrier, and flipped over it.
Wow.
And they took him out on a stretcher, but they were able to interview him later. So
wow.
And there's some pictures online of him. The area he ended up in is where the photographers and some journalists would normally stay, between a catch fence and the barrier. And there's some pictures of the car taken by one of those photographers, I'm sure, after he changed his trousers. But it's just, that's a scary view.
That would be scary.
Yeah.
Do they say their halo saved him?
Oh, he said it. Yeah, he absolutely said it. And I believe it.
Talking about rivalries within IndyCar racing. Now, here's one I've been hearing about, not among drivers, but among owners. And Paul, you mentioned in Formula One made me think of it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Zach Brown of McLaren and Chip Ganassi are exactly buddies. I guess
I've heard that as well.
Right. I guess Zach went after Scott Dixon a couple of years ago, and Ganassi wasn't too happy about that at all. And then Zach Brown turns around and gets Rosenquist. So,
and now they're going after below.
I'm wondering how much we'll actually see Zach Brown at IndyCar events, because he's pretty entrenched doing the Formula One stuff. But if he does, put a camera on him.
Yes. Well, that might make a good IndyCar deal, with similar to Drive to Survive, with Netflix.
Right.
And Formula
Great
One.
show,
So,
by the way. Great.
Yeah, those two might be the. Chip Ganassi is not always the most warm and fuzzy individual anyway.
No,
you said it.
I've always found Chip extremely cordial to me.
Well,
see, you're screwed, Bob.
I don't know. I've heard that, but you know, it's always very cordial and everything. Maybe it's because he wants a Eddie Sachs book or something without having to pay for
There
it.
you go.
But,
Yeah. Okay,
no,
that's two promos, so you're almost done. One more promo for your book.
all right. I want to what's with your new book type of promo, I guess. And how's it coming along?
Yeah, you're talking to me?
Yes,
Terrible.
I want to get a copy of that too.
Terrible. Summer has taken me over. You know, the month of May really starts the summer, and you know that's just a whirlwind of activities. And then June, we were in Florida up until we came up to May in the first week. And so that means June becomes the time when you start sorting out your suitcases and whatever you have. So we've been busy with that, and you know, little things that get caught up on the house. So
A buddy of ours kind of hinting around, do you think I could visit Paul Page in Florida this winter? So I said, I'll ask on the air, but Lindell wants, when he comes to Florida, he wants to, so hit him up for lunch.
Well,
or something. Maybe take him one of those French restaurants, Paul.
you can visit, and that's great for Lindell. I've been trying to get a hold of him on Messenger. We've been back and forth, and anyhow, enough of that. Yeah, you, sir, come on down, visit. There's a Holiday Inn, or actually it's something else now, just down the street. I'd invite you in our place. We have a nice little guest room, and the bed is pretty much filled with rocks and bolts and nuts and things. We don't want anybody to stay more than one night.
Yeah. How does everyone like my red shirt that I'm wearing today?
Yeah, I like that. That's really sharp.
In a week or so, and Bob, it'll tie in with what you're doing. I am doing it. I ordered from our dear friend Toddy Ruttman the Toddy Ruttman, Troy Ruttman sweatshirt, which I will wear, and it'll give you a chance to talk about your Troy Ruttman book a little bit.
Okay.
Who some people say is as fine a race car driver to have ever driven an Indy car. So we'll go back to Zach Brown, and we'll finish up with.
Sorry about that.
No. That's what's fun about this show. But I thought McLaren was really strong this weekend, and potentially Rosenquist could have beaten Award, and they're going to be really formidable. And I think even more so with when Rossi comes in.
I'm glad to see McLaren in IndyCar and doing well, because I think it brings a lot more attention to IndyCar. I mean, McLaren's an iconic name in open wheel racing, and so I'm glad to see them involved, and like I say, doing well and wanting to expand. I think that's all positive.
You know, before we leave Mid Ohio, there was one other issue at play. I mean, you saw Chevrolet's engines have issues, and almost all of the cars at Mid Ohio were on the last hours of their 2,500 hours that they have to get on an engine before they change it. If they change it before that, they get a grid penalty. And so I think there was a lot of careful engine watching there too. I mean, we saw some things that you didn't normally see.
Right.
It was Parker Johnstone, who I did a bunch of IndyCar with. We were watching Robbie Gordon, and he had an engine blow up, and no question the engine went. But immediately Parker says, "Now you watch." He's going to coast into the pits, and when asked what happened, he's going to say electrical. and he did exactly that. And then Parker said, "Yeah, it was electrical when the connecting rod went through the electric box." Electronics.
Right.
Well, then 2 weeks from now, it'll be at Toronto. It'll be the first time since 2019. So I'm sure our friends and viewers north of the border are going to be very glad to see that back. Have you been to Toronto how many times, Paul?
I don't know, most of them until about 5 years ago.
Isn't that a fantastic place to host?
It's the best. It's the best. It's I love the Princess Gate, which is the end of the front straightaway, and they make that right-hander. And the the Canadian crowds just love IndyCar. Well, they like racing in general. That's a very racing committed population.
Right.
And so maybe I can get somebody to buy my ticket. I think my passport is still valid. Guess you got to use them now. So
Yeah.
So, but we'll be reporting on Toronto in 2 weeks. But what we did not have time for at the end of the last episode 8, we got off on this very interesting finish to the 1981 Indianapolis 500, where on lap 149, both Bobby Unser and Mario Andretti pitted, and as Bobby left the pits ahead of Mario, he passed like 11 or 12 cars on the inside apron, then blended in, and Mario passed too. So it's not a case, but Mario justified, and he lost some car positions because of that. And then Unser gets all the accolades in victory lane, gets the milk and the wreath. And then the next morning, it's announced officially that Mario wins the race. And Mario was driving for Pat Patrick and Bobby Unser for Roger Penske.
right.
And obviously with Penske involved, he's determined to win it as much as he can, and it mounted the legal challenge. And then October 9th, it gets reverted back to Bobby Unser winning. Paul, you've been with Bobby Unser probably as much as any. Was there stories that Bobby may have shared with you that really haven't come to the surface that you'd like to tell about what he was saying about that?
And I may have mentioned this before, but I was working for a local television station as well as for NBC Sports at that time. And I was doing radio for the Indianapolis 500. The TV station had a bunch of different views from their shooting positions. And so Bobby wanted to go through all those tapes. So the general manager said, yeah, sure. And said, Paul, why don't you just sit with him? And so we're going into the night down at the television station in a conference room, and we're watching all these different tapes, and maybe we watched 15 or so, and Bobby kind of stops and he looks over at me and he said, you know, Paul, if I knew that was a rule, I never would have done it. But that was a blend line violation. I'm pretty sure that less than 5% of the people at the Speedway had any idea what a blend line was, if that many.
Right.
And that was the night of the race, or was that the day?
No. This is like a week or so later.
Oh, okay.
He and I had been back and forth on a lot of things, and he imagine how he felt. And that's and there is also my absolute argument that if you're going to assess a penalty, you're going to have to do it during the race.
Yeah.
The public has a right to see the finish. So
I got an interesting comment, Paul, from Barb Hellier. You know Barb.
Oh, good old Barbara.
Hi,
Barb.
This story, I'm not sure who she was working for at that point in time. Maybe it was USAC. She worked for Foyt for quite a few years.
Right.
But anyway, she made the comment that the rule book at that time stated that the penalty will be issued at the time of the infraction. You see, and they missed that. They didn't do that.
And I've said it before. That was an ABC Sports induced penalty.
Yeah.
Nobody had seen it. But when they were looking back through the video for the night's show, they saw that happen on video. So Jackie Stewart runs and confronts Tom Binford, and Binford looked at the same thing and is, oh my goodness, what we're going to do. And of course, when ABC was on the air on those tape delay races, they presented it as, it's obvious. We saw that. Look at that. He's passing him. Didn't have any idea during the race. I think I'm going to reduce my estimate to less than 1%. Knew what that was.
Would you think the outcome would have been different had Mario not passed any cars? And he was, had the claim then that I didn't pass any, and Bobby Unser.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that it hinged on that. And I sat through the entire appeal hearing.
Mhm.
The administrative law judge running it and everything. And there were other issues that I think were more important than the comparison of Mario Did It Too. Mario Did It Too was almost a media sidebar as opposed to what they were arguing in the appeal.
As you sat through those hours of testimony and things, did you get a sense who was going to prevail?
No, I really didn't. I sat there. I was a pool guy for the electronic media, and Joe Daldell from Detroit was the print guy, and so we were the only ones who were allowed in. No, I thought it was very evenly presented, and I think I mentioned before, Penske had a lawyer from Philadelphia, and those Philadelphia lawyers, and he looked every inch of it, and he was good. Guy's name was Jimmy Benz. But both sides presented well, and I'm not sure that I could have decided that off of those arguments. I'd be hard pressed. So,
well, how surprised were you when they awarded it back to Bobby Unser?
Oh, I by that time, I thought it was beginning to lean very much to Bobby. But in the early part, I mean, you're talking 6 months here. The early part of that, it was fairly neutral. So,
well, Bob, what do you think if we kind of alluded to this before, but if Penske owned the Andretti car and Patrick owned the Bobby Unser car, do you think it would have been a different outcome?
I don't think so, unless the lawyer that Paul has mentioned, had a huge influence in the case. And if that's the case, well, yeah, if Penske had the lawyer, and Mario, who knows, it might have come out different because of that. But yeah, that's a good question. Who knows what the answer might be. I don't think it was because, I'll put it this way, I don't think it was because of Penske influence.
Mm-hmm.
For one thing, Roger wasn't the influence in IndyCar racing then as he is today. Right. So I don't think it would have been different.
Did he Patrick screw up by not getting Johnny Cochran as his attorney? No, that's kind of an LA thing with the Simpson thing.
Well, it was more the sanctioning body versus looking at both Mario and Bobby.
Was Henry Ryder involved in that at all?
Yes, Henry represented then the United States Auto Club.
He is such
he's great,
fine fella. I wish him well. And his daughter, who's similar to you, a pretty noted broadcaster in the Indianapolis area, and writer, everything. He was always gracious to me and my ability to get into the Columbia Club and things.
Really?
Yes, and in fact, he talked me into
Denny.
doing a book signing and everything. So but that was me. And most people don't get into the Columbia Club.
I was going to say, I pay pretty hefty dues to get into the Columbia Club.
Do you now with the HOF behind your name?
Yeah, I'm going to be putting your picture with the bell stand and the desk.
So,
well, I would be interested. Did Bobby talk much about his relationship after that with Mario? I know they were very good friends beforehand, and I know that relationship was strained for many years. Did Bobby talk much about that?
Well, he talked about the ring quite a bit. Mario had the ring and wasn't giving it back. There was one claim that he threw it in the lake up at his lake house, but I think I've seen that ring on his finger at one time or another. So but you have to know the eras of the rings to be able to identify one in the early 80s because they've changed up so much.
Was that a Thornton Bardock ring back in?
That one was, that's right. Yeah. He was the ring maker to IndyCar, and then they wanted Thornton to pay, you know, to have the rights to make the ring. And Thornton had been making on his own, his whole deal on his own for years and years. And so he said, well, no, I don't want to do that, but I'd like to do the ring. And that's when I moved over to Herff Jones. So, yeah. You were asking, since we mentioned Henry Ryder, when you looked at the two attorneys in that, they were like the diametric opposites. Henry was a straightforward, fact by fact plotting. He's getting everything out, where Benz was pretty much a showman. But it was held in front of an administrative law judge. So the binge antics were probably more for me and Joe Dowdell than they were for anything else, because administrative law judge, he's not going to get waived by stuff like that. I don't think he did. He was a very, very patient and I thought efficient guy.
Paul, knowing Bobby the way you did, had that not happened and he was the winner and he got to collect the check and the pace car and everything the next day, would he have come back and run in 82?
I think probably yes. Yeah,
as defending champion.
So soured him. I mean, he was, I think proper word is he felt shamed by it. I mean, and again, he didn't talk about it all that much. So that's what gives me to believe how significant it was for him. So yeah, I think he would have raced a couple of years more. Then we hired him for television, and wow, what an experience that was.
Mentioning hiring Bobby Unser, in 81, you had Roger Ward as your driver expert. What Roger Ward stories in the booth would you like to share with your viewers?
Well, that, of course, that race started with a crash. And the radio booth flat fronted, and we were in the left-hand corner of that control tower on the 5th floor. That was the floor that had wings out on either side of it, so people could stand out there and watch if they had the appropriate credentials. But as I'm calling the start, they had just handed it off to me, and you know, I'm saying the green flag is out, something like that, and Roger grabs me and slams me up against the window because he knows the glare is such that I'm not seeing it, but he's seeing it, and he just pushed me into the glass window so I'd see the accident and call it. He was a great guy. He was one of my heroes in the early 60s.
Yeah.
And Roger Ward, really, when we will be talking about Roger Ward down the road when we talk about our 2-time winners of Indy, but he had a career that really was almost regarded as a field filler for several years until he got hooked up with Wilkie. And then he became a superstar and a legend at Indy and everything.
Yeah. And those Wilkie cars were beautiful too.
Yeah.
I love the way they were painted up and everything.
Right.
Yeah, they were beautiful.
So we're going to start a new kind of segment.
Wait a minute, you haven't told us any about this. Bob, did he tell you about this?
I'm not sure what segment.
Okay, all right, Denny.
You do know because I sent you.
I guess we'll find out. Huh?
A crib sheet on it. Remember the days in college and the little crib sheet?
Yeah, I do.
We're going to talk about a handful of the more stellar rookies in the 81 race. And this was an unusual situation that ties in with Bobby Unser too, that the rookie of the year was Josele Garza, who was the first Mexican driver to race at Indy. And back in those days, you had to be 21 to come to Indy, but kind of like Troy Ruttman, he had fake credentials and he truly was 19 years old. Josele started 6th as a rookie and ran with the big boys during the race. He led 13 laps and then crashes in the race and finishes 23rd. Now, I bring that up for a couple of reasons. One, we have three other drivers that were rookies that finished fourth: Kevin Cogan, fifth, Geoff Brabham, son of Sir Jack Brabham, and seventh, Tony Bettenhausen, son of the iconic Tony Bettenhausen. And we're going to talk a little bit about those, but first I want to talk about Garza. As I understand it, he hires Bobby Unser to be his kind of coach in '82.
Yeah.
And Josele's career kind of goes a nosedive from then on.
I don't
You
think
have
Bobby
some
did him
Bobby
any
Unser,
good.
Josele Garza story. I guess that was
it was-
torture for Garza for the story.
Well, it was the mismatch of the century, no question about it. And I don't think Bobby did anything that was helpful to him. And he was a really nice young man. He was very, very polite, and was a good driver. I don't think he really needed Bobby, but if you're going to get a coach, I guess you go to Bobby because you think he's really good, but he may be a great race driver, but he's not the world's greatest teacher. It didn't do anything for Josele.
How much money do you think he was paid to do that, Paul? Did you ever hear?
Oh, I couldn't even begin to guess. Bobby negotiated everything himself, and he was a hard negotiator.
No, the point being, had he not gotten that chunk of money to do that, might he have driven in '82?
I don't think so. I
Okay,
think
still
he was
the bitterness
done
of
with racing because he was bitter and shamed.
Bob, what Josele Garza stories do you have?
I don't know, have any particular stories. I mean, I'm like Paul, personable young guy, seemed to be very talented, very outgoing, definitely a mismatch with personalities between Bobby and Jose. I was thinking about when Paul talked about Bobby not being the best teacher in the world. I heard a story from Al Jr. just recently, a couple of weeks ago, about how early on, when he was racing go-karts, and so was Bobby Jr. racing go-karts. Well, Uncle Bobby would stand out at the go-kart track on one of the slower turns with a stick and smack him on the helmet to get him to speed up. And so that was kind of Bobby's teaching method. So I'm not sure how that worked with Josele. But
I never saw any teaching myself.
But I think the Garza family had a whole bunch of
They did. Yeah,
money.
pretty well.
I mean,
pretty well off.
Extremely wealthy. Does anyone?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll ask our viewers if either one of you, what's the update on Josele Garza and what's he doing today? And because he looked there for a while as a rookie that he was going to be a winner of that race.
Mm-hmm.
In an era where rookies were not winning
Right.
at Indy. And he finishes 23rd. And to show his appeal, I guess, to the media people, to finish 23rd and crash, he defeats Kevin Cogan at 4th, Brabham at 5th, Bettenhausen at 6th, Scott Brayton finished 16th. Michael Chandler was in the field, whose dad was huge out here.
Great money there.
With the Los Angeles Times, Otis Chandler.
right.
And we're going to talk about Garza, Cogan, Brabham, Bettenhausen, and Brayton, and a little bit of Chandler. But I do want to let you talk about a friend of yours, another rookie, Pete Halsmer, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
And who's a Boilermaker, by the way. Boiler up, Pete, if you're watching this.
Boilermaker, that's what? Is that Purdue?
Yes.
I'm
That's
just
the opposite of some initials they have for the other school down south.
Well, Pete was a very, very personable guy. He wore aviator glasses all the time, and that was kind of his trademark when you'd see him. But he's well composed, well comported, and we got talking, and that's when I realized that he was in the Army. And we have not that many race drivers that have done that. I mean, Johnny Rutherford was a Marine, so is a Marine based on the way they look at it. There is a claim that Bobby Unser was in the Air Force on the Air Force shooting team, but I don't know. Yeah, I should have asked that one a long time ago.
Would you have gone out to the range and shot with Bobby Unser? Oh.
No, well, no. Yeah, no. Since you asked that way, just again, as an aside, every year I would take drivers in the week before the race when we actually had time to go and do things out to the FBI range here in Indianapolis. And the Bureau came out and let them shoot all their weapons and everything. And Tony Kanaan said that if he wasn't driving, he'd be doing this, right there. So yeah, it was a fun time.
Cool.
Was there ammunition restrictions at that time, Paul?
No. No, especially when the federal government was providing it.
So, but Garza does get Rookie of the Year by finishing 23rd and crashing out.
Which, when you
Go
think
ahead.
about it, Denny, the way that the Rookie of the Year was chosen in that era was the media. There was, I don't know, maybe 20 of us. I don't know how many. And the tendency among the media at that time, because they were so busy with other things and they needed that card pretty quickly, was to write down the name of the highest finishing rookie. But obviously we were all doing some serious thinking about that at that time. And to choose Garza, I think, was a great tribute to him, because more often than not, that was just a rote thing, but not that year.
Yeah. Well,
And in a way, that precedent potentially helped influence Alonso winning and then Jimmy Johnson winning. You didn't necessarily have to be the highest finishing rookie to win Rookie of the Year.
Right. Yeah,
And,
that helped.
yeah.
It certainly makes that glitterishness of that bigger than life name look pretty impressive on the list of winners of Rookie of the Year for sure. Kevin Cogan did reside quite close. I live in Redondo Beach, and right next to Redondo Beach is a place called Palos Verdes. And Kevin was from PV for a while, and at a very young age came to Indy, and he finishes fourth as a rookie, and very easily could have won the 1986 Indianapolis 500 had there not been a late race yellow allowing the bunch up. Cogan would have won that race, and then suffered very painful injuries. Crash with Roberto Guerrero a couple of years later. He came back to run one more time, but I think he's had lingering effects with pain issues since that crash and everything. Well, we'll get both of your guys' take on Kevin Cogan, who I really think definitely could have been an Indy 500 winner. Bob, we'll start with you and your remembrance of Kevin Cogan.
Well, again, who'd you say, Denny?
Kevin Cogan.
Who do you want to speak?
You, I'm sorry, Bob. Yes, you.
Oh, okay. All right.
I like to flip flop it so it's like a ping pong match.
Very, very talented driver, probably very underrated, I think, as a driver, and primarily because of what happened in 1982, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
On the start of the race in 1982, when he wiped out some of the favorites. I think Foyt, he hit Foyt, although Foyt got restarted.
Foyt mentioned him once or twice.
Mario, and some others. And then, even as after Indy, as he went to other races and was introduced, he would get a lot of big round of boos from the crowd just because of that. And I think because of that, I won't speak for Roger, but I'm sure that weighed into the fact that Roger Penske dropped him. He was driving for Roger Penske, dropped him after that season. So I always felt bad for Cogan, or as Foyt calls him, that Coogan. And
that Coogan kid.
Yeah,
I thought they had an expletive in there between that and Coogan or something. We'll
But,
let you do your best example of Foyt, since you do Bobby Unser so well, Paul, about that damn Cogan or something.
Right, right.
He's from Texas and he speaks Texas.
There you go.
That's all I can
There you
say.
go.
Do you think had that not happened, Cogan would have probably been with Penske for several years? He kind of fit that Penske image, good looking, almost
Yeah,
surfer blonde type guy out here, fairly articulate. Qualifies as his second year in the middle of the front row. What do you see would have happened to Cogan's career had that not happened, Paul?
Well, I think I was surprised that he was at Penske. He was, as you say, he was movie star handsome, very pleasant individual. We'd actually hang around a little bit together. And I would guess that if that not had happened, that he might have stayed at Penske sometime, because image-wise, he was the perfect Penske driver, and obviously he could drive.
Yeah.
And I understand that he still suffers from injuries in an accident. And I'm sorry, I can't remember where, but he's not in the world's best shape, is the last word I had.
Right.
And he had a similar experience to you in riding a helicopter that crashed as well.
Yes, right.
He was.
I know very little about that. I generally don't follow helicopter crashes.
I think he was involved when Michael and them were leaving their complex.
Leaving
in that
the lake,
helicopter.
yeah. Yeah, that wasn't a crash. That was,
No.
They set it down. Come on, you gotta have parts flying everywhere if you want it to be a crash.
All right, then we had fifth place finisher, second generation driver, Geoff Brabham. And I always thought Brabham had the potential to win Indy, and his career kind of went flat for a bit. He was decent, very decent, but never went to that upper level and everything. Either one of you have a Geoff Brabham story, Paul?
No, not really.
Bob,
He was a great guy, but
Yeah, I agree. Great guy. He just didn't quite have I don't want to say killer instinct. He was a good driver, not as great as his father was.
Mhm.
And maybe having to walk in the shadow of his father, might have hurt him as well.
And then we have Tony Bettenhausen, the third, or the youngest of the three Bettenhausen sons. Tony finished his seventh his rookie year, and looks like he was going to have a promising career, but compared to Gary, he was not near as good in Indy cars, but became a relatively successful owner of Indy cars.
Yeah.
What you're particularly close to the Bettenhausens, Bob. What do you have memories of Tony?
What's very interesting about Tony as a driver, and I'm not speaking out of turn here because I've heard this from Merle and from Gary both, is that he wasn't the greatest race car driver, okay? Until he got to Indianapolis. And he just surprised everyone with how good he was at Indianapolis. And he just had that special touch. It takes a special touch at Indy. You have to be very smooth, very precise. And that just fit Tony very well. His mind that Tony could do as well as he did at Indianapolis. But as you say, he went on to become a car owner, was always a little more into the business side of it than Gary or Merle, either one.
You knew him fairly well too, Paul.
Yeah. I knew Gary a lot more. We're talking about Tony. But the whole Bettenhausen family, they're a big racing family, and they did so many things and did them well. It always surprised me that they never at Indy really rose up to the peak like I would have expected them to do, because they had the heritage. the dad, Tony Bettenhausen, was killed at Indy during a practice run.
Yeah.
And you would have thought maybe they might have walked away, but they didn't. They loved the place. But I don't think they ever had, almost as a group, the right equipment at Indy.
Mhm.
And that goes back, the same thing with Kevin Cogan. Had Gary Bettenhausen stayed with Penske, I know Robin would say constantly he'd been the first 5-time winner at Indy. Unfortunately, Tony Bettenhausen lost his life in a plane crash on Valentine's Day. And his wife was Jim McElree's daughter, Shirley. As well as a real tragic day on that. Scotty Brayton was also in that field, who winds up winning the pole position twice at Indy in 95 and 96, and then tragically gets killed after he sets on the pole for the 96 Indianapolis 500. Either one of you have a Scott Brayton story you'd like to share?
Well, Scott he had the eternal smile on his face. He was so happy about just being a race driver. And he was very, very pleasant. The one thing I think mostly was that he was incredibly fast. And yes, he sat on the pole, but again, an equipment issue. He didn't necessarily have equipment that would really go the 500 miles. So his chances weren't all that good in reality.
I loved it that year that he set the Buick on the pole at Indy. That was quite an accomplishment, and really caused a stir back when that was before the split. And I would imagine his first pole in 95 meant a lot more than his pole in 96, but 96 was very interesting too. I'll put in a shout for his brother Todd, who always has a cooler full of beer, and I kind of like a homing pigeon, knows where Scott's sitting and everything. A heck of a guy himself. They lost their dad Lee in May, who was quite a good sprint car driver and potentially could have driven at Indy as well. Scott Brayton story, Bob?
Just, I'm like with Paul, every time I saw him, had a big smile on his face, and he just was full of life, just enjoying being a race car driver. I remember one time when at one time there at Indy, there was a cafeteria under the stands.
Yeah.
And it was divided. Credential people or any credential people go on the other. And so I was in there, and Scott Brayton comes bouncing in towards the end of the day with his driver's uniform on. And I remember Bobby Unser in particular, but a couple through, maybe Al Sr., were just giving him a hard time about, there you are still with your driver's uniform on. And he would just smile and laugh. He just loved being a race car driver. And he loved letting people know, hey, I'm a race car driver. I drive at the Indianapolis 500. That was what was conveyed with his actions. And I thought that was pretty neat.
Tragic loss for the fledgling at that time IndyCar, the IRL, when Scott got killed as well.
Sure.
We promised we'd do a Robin Miller story. We'll conclude with this. This happened in 1981 as well, and that was the first year that they had the handheld radar guns, and they were using the radar gun to do trap speeds, and Foyt was like 214 mile an hour and 8 mile an hour faster than everyone else, and Robin printed that, and we'll let you, Bob, tell the aftermath about that.
Well, I guess when you say printed that, I think Robin kind of conjectured why was he 8 miles an hour faster than everybody else down the straightaway without offering, an answer in particular. And of course, it was implied that he was doing something with the turbo boost or something with the engine, who knows at that point. So Foyt took it very personal, and a few days later, he walked up behind Robin and kind of grabbed Robin and slapped him in the back of the head. They had a few words at that point, and I guess Foyt actually brought a libel suit against the Indianapolis Star, which was settled out of court. And Robin never would talk about what the settlement was, except it was settled out of court. But Robin and AJ, ended up being good friends. They talked at least once a week in the last 5 or 6 years. And so I guess some good came out of it. But Robin, after he got slapped in the back of the head, there was a lawyer friend who saw it happen. And he said, "Hey, you got witnesses. We can do something with this." And Robin refused to do that. But he did go ahead and print another column where he talked about the opportunities or the times that AJ supposedly cheated in a variety of ways. Oversized engine in his sprint car, and tactically placed and hidden nitrous oxide tanks and hoses, and just all types of things like that.
You didn't believe any of those stories, did you, Paul, that Foyt would do something like that?
AJ Foyt is like, he's a knight. He would never besmirch his honor. Yeah,
And
I heard a lot of them. And one of the more interesting ones to me, I was sitting in the Champion spark plug room, and they had a separate set of plugs than most of the other guys had that were there for Foyt. I don't think he ever picked them up, but the unique aspect of these plugs were they were built to be used in fuel like hydrazine, and that's extraordinarily expensive. It would also eat the porcelain and the plug, so they had to change that. And I always wondered, well, you got some hydrazine in there, but then again, as drag racers found out, it can blow up and really blow up. So who knows? But going back to last week when we started this conversation, Denny, I thought we were going to go through the whole thing. So I had my Robin with the red circle with the line through it. I was wearing it. I didn't want anybody to think that I was being rude in any way, but yeah, they passed out. I think they actually came from Foyt, and a lot of us were all wearing the Robin.
Foyt got a kick out of that, I know.
so if you put that on eBay, how much you think it'd sell for, Paul?
Who knows? None of my stuff's going to eBay ever.
Well, another final question, and then we'll have a wrap up. Who got hit harder, Robin or Ari Lyondike by Foyt?
Ari Lyondike.
Did it?
Yeah, he really got smacked. Again, back of the head. We're talking about Foyt. This picture right here is his 4th win, and Ron Burton did it. I just want to point it out because what it is a small boy looking at the car that won the Indianapolis 500, and they got remnants of the flowers and everything up there. And so this painting is, everybody left, and all that was left was this young boy dreaming, looking at the Foyt car, and who knows who Burton really thought the kid was. This is one of my favorite Burtons.
Oh, I love the Ron. Does one know where all the Ron Burton commission paintings are today? Does the Speedway have them all, or?
I doubt it. I've got one here. The
Miller commission, Miller Beer Commission for him to do.
Yeah. He was great.
Oh, he is. So anyway, final wrap up on this weekend. Your thoughts on what happened at Mid Ohio or Bobby Unser or anything like that? We'll start with you, Bob, and then we'll go to Paul, and then we'll sign off.
I think, again, looking back at Mid Ohio, what I was pleased with was the size of the crowd there. Seemed like it was as large a crowd or larger than I'd seen in quite some time at Mid Ohio, and I think that bodes well for the future of IndyCar. The idea that there were 27 cars competing bodes well for IndyCar. So hopefully it can continue to expand and grow. And I mentioned McLaren's involvement. Again, I think that's a positive. Gets international attention, if nothing else.
And Paul?
Well, yeah, the crowd was great. You're right, Bob. Mid Ohio is such a cool place because you can camp in the area and you can wander all around the track. I mean, it's beautiful, and it is incredibly difficult to drive. You don't hear the drivers talk about that much, but privately they'll say, you know, I've never done a perfect lap here. On
Yeah.
some of them. So it's a tough race course, especially that off camber 5.
Right.
That's very, very difficult. I raced my Formula Ford there 4 or 5 times. And I was
How many times did you win at Mid Ohio?
Oh, none. It's the big fat 0 in all of my adventures in a race car.
So that's the only one that Robin didn't get to read a victory about you on. Well, everyone, for Paul Page and Bob Gates, I'm Denny Miller, and we'll see you next time. And Godspeed, and stay safe.